meeting to order. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to meeting of the Special Executive Committee. Thank you to members for making sure that we managed to pull this off from a diary perspective, following the need to cancel it at during the period of the national mourning. Just to advise people that the committee is being recorded and will be uploaded to the authority's YouTube channel after the meeting. If I can ask those that are joining us by Teams to go off their cameras and come onto camera when you want to speak. I'm conscious that it's the first meeting of the Executive Committee since the passing of Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II, and so I'd like to propose that we stand for a minute's silence before we commence the meeting. Okay, apologies for absence.
Councillors Lambert and Walsh, and as you know, Councillor Marlin's joining us online.
Thank you. Minutes of the last meeting. Are there any questions of accuracy from members who are happy for me to approve and sign as a correct record of the meeting? Thank you. Matters arising from the previous meeting. Graham.
Thank you, Chairman. At EX09, there was a point about the Home Office white paper consultation and the forming of a working group, which then led to recommendations up to the Executive Committee before submission. I confirmed that response has been submitted on behalf of the authority and circulated to the group leaders. And then in terms of EX10, which is operational KPIs, I think members will know this, that's on the agenda for today.
Great, thank you very much. Disclosure of interest. Are there any interest that members would like to declare? That's none. Thank you very much. Item number 5, questions in accordance with Standing Order SOA 7.
None received, Chairman.
Thank you very much. Okay, so 2 items we're going to cover under item 6. The work of the service in supporting Operation London Bridge, which Area Commander Simon Tuffley is going to talk about, and then summer pressures, which is a verbal update from Area Commander Callum Bell. So we'll kick off firstly with Operation London Bridge. Simon.
Thank you, Chairman. So I prepared a briefing for you. So following the announcement on the 8th of September 2022 that Her Majesty the Queen Elizabeth II had passed away, a statement was released on the same evening from the Chairman on our intranet and internet pages. Our website was altered to reflect the period of national mourning, and our Union flags were flown at half-mast. A small team was established internally to coordinate the activity associated with Operation London Bridge, which is the Queen's funeral, and Parallel Bridge, which focused on supporting wider associated ceremonies, business as usual activity, and additional support to our colleagues in and around Windsor. Station Commander Suzanne Connolly, Communication Officer Georgie Porter, and Station Commander Dave Tubbs were the initial core members of that team. Following a request from the multi-agency Gold team overseeing Operation London Bridge, Station Commander Suzanne Connolly was also nominated to provide multi-agency information cell support to the strategic meetings for London Bridge over the next 2 weeks. As a mark of respect, all public meetings scheduled during the period of national mourning were postponed, as was the open day at Broughton Fire Station and our attendance at the Milton Keynes Pride event. The Chief Fire Officer represented the service at the County Proclamation in Aylesbury and the Proclamation event held in Milton Keynes on Sunday the 11th of September. On the weekend before the state funeral, Anne-Marie Carter and Station Commander Pierce Valance represented the service at church services of Thanksgiving in Aylesbury and Milton Keynes. The Aylesbury service was also supported by members of our ceremonial team. Staff from across the service participated in the national moments of reflection when the nation held a minute's silence on September the 18th at 8 p.m the night before the Queen's funeral. In the days leading up to the funeral, staff also supported colleagues across the Thames Valley on the ground in Windsor. We received a request from Royal Berkshire Fire and Rescue Service and Fire Safety Protection Officers to be deployed to complete additional fire safety audits. There was also a request for prevention teams to provide additional support in and around Windsor. Business fire engineering technician Jonathan James immediately volunteered and was made available, but was not in the event required. Members of our prevention team, community safety coordinators Anna Ditter and Joe Foote, volunteered to assist in providing prevention advice to the community of Windsor on the weekend. Anna worked in Windsor on the Saturday prior to the funeral, delivering community safety messages and advice to the public, as well as assisting in 2 medical emergencies. We also received a request from Thames Valley Police CBRNE team commander, which is Chemical, Biological, Radiological and Nuclear Explosive commander, to provide a multi-agency scene assessment team and a detection, identification and monitoring provision. This support commenced from the Thursday through to the end of the funeral, with Group Commander Paul Skeins being deployed into Windsor for the duration, alongside colleagues from Oxfordshire, Berkshire, Thames Valley Police and South Central Ambulance Service, and other teams coordinated through National Resilience. Business Fire Safety Inspector Dylan Bettles-Hill was also utilised for his technical skills as an airwave tactical advisor, where he formed part of a multi-agency communication cell at Milton Keynes Police Station, supporting Operation London Bridge. Furthermore, Area Commander Callum Bell was called up to participate in the state funeral marching procession as representatives of civilian services. Callum was deployed into London for a rehearsal from the Tuesday before the funeral and marched in the procession behind the Sovereign alongside colleagues from the Merchant Navy, Royal Fleet Auxiliary, the Maritime Coast Guard Agency, Police Services, His Majesty's Prison Services, Ambulance Service, British Red Cross, St John's Ambulance, Royal Voluntary Service and Cadet Forces. Throughout the period, the service responded in many ways, always with pride and dignity, and our volunteers coming forward to assist, as well as the wider service marking their respects, are all fine examples of the great work carried out by this service every day.
Thank you very much, Simon. And can I place on record on behalf of the authority my thanks to colleagues for that fantastic work over that period. And it was obviously a tremendous honour for Callum to represent the service at the funeral itself. So thank you from me.
I'll just add to that as well. My personal thanks and the thanks from Milton Keynes to Buckinghamshire Council. I thought the reading of the proclamation by the High Sheriff and the Lord Lieutenant, and more especially the crowds who attended in Aylesbury, were very moving, and it was extremely well organised. And so, as I say, thanks to the leader of the council and to your good selves for arranging that.
Thank you. Anything else members would like to add? Okay, thank you very much. So we'll move now on to summer pressures. Callum.
Good morning. Thank you, Chairman. Yes, just as by a way of, this is an interim update. A more formal brief will be coming to the paper has been prepared and a report to come to the full authority next week. And I say that, and that in itself will also be just an interim, because we are still just halfway through, I would say, the debriefing process. So if we cast our minds back to July and August of this year, they were some of the most demanding times we have faced in terms of the pressures being placed upon us for operational response across the whole of Buckinghamshire and Milton Keynes, and extending the Thames Valley and a lot wider, as you all have seen yourselves from the national news. We had 15 fire and rescue services declare major incidents during the period in July, of which we were one. And on that particular day, we had 2 major incidents running concurrently. As I've mentioned, we are now midway through the debriefing process. As is normal with events such as this, we would carry out what is called a learning review of command, where we get all the key commanders that were involved in the events, both in July and in August, to come together and surface the learning so that we can apply that, learn from it, and make any changes as is necessary to improve the service we provide. We will also hold debriefing exercises for all staff, not just the commanders, and support staff across the whole organisation for anybody that was involved. And it was just announced the other day that the local resilience forum are now looking to book a date and start to gather information around their own learning. So once we have all the information from that, we will complete a full and thorough report and we will bring that back to the authority for their consideration in the coming months. Thus far, with the exercises we've carried out so far in terms of debriefing and learning, there's a number of areas that we've looked at, and it would be errant upon us to start to make major change at this time when we still haven't concluded all of the debriefing activities. But so far, some of the key themes that have come to the surface are areas around preparedness and resilience, response, equipment, fleet, and the likes. And fleet is one that is extending across not just us locally in Buckinghamshire and Milton Keynes, but also in the Thames Valley and more nationally around what capability do we have to respond to the ever-increasing types of incidents that we experienced during that period. Our procedures to deploy to those sort of things, welfare for our staff, that is one area where we've already now made some changes, early changes, because we felt it was right to do. So whilst we have got the ability to provide plenty of drinking water on the appliances, when we've got extreme heat, we also need to make sure that that water is maintained in a cool form. So we've issued cool boxes, electrolyte tablets that the staff can add to that to maintain their levels. And we've also now accelerated the rollout of personal issue half-mask respirators. That was something that we were always going to do, but because of some of the early learns we've got from these events, we've accelerated the issuing of that specialist piece of respiratory protection. And also we're looking at communications, both internally, externally, how we communicate between different functions, health and safety, and not least and not forgetting prevention activity. Where can we influence landowners and the likes to perhaps consider alternative ways of managing crop, storing crop and the likes? So that's where we are so far. There is a fuller report, written report, coming to the authority next week. And as I've committed to, once we have condensed all of the learning that we've got, we will bring that together in a comprehensive report and bring that to the authority for their consideration in the coming months. That concludes my brief update on where we are so far with the summer pressures. I'm happy to take any questions if there are any.
Great, thank you, Callum. That was a really helpful update. I know we've got, as you say, an agenda item at the full next week. Again, let's place on record my thanks to colleagues for outstanding work through the summer. I think we all knew of events in our local areas where the service responded tremendously well. We also, as you say, need to make sure we learn from it. Can I just check? I know that there are also some National Fire Chiefs Council reviews underway. Those will be integrated into our own local learnings, I hope.
Yes, they will, and we are already feeding into that around equipment and the likes. And I've mentioned fleet, and also I touched on tactical advisors. For the incident down in the south of the county, we utilised a tactical advisor. That's something that has been in arrangements nationally around national resilience, and we are reviewing the current provision we've got for wildfire TACADs, amongst other things, as part of that. So we are feeding in both locally, regionally and nationally around that.
Any other questions, Gary?
Yeah, thanks, Chairman. Just wanted to raise one thing, Callum. I became aware that some staff had raised concerns about a welfare vehicle. So if you're attending a major incident, there's somewhere to go to the loo if you need to do it, if you're there for a prolonged period. Are we planning on doing anything, or have we done something in that area?
Yeah, we do, and we do have a provision, and it's we've realised that we need to broaden the awareness of that provision, which we've got in the arrangements we've got. But that's not saying that we've resolved that. As part of the learning, we've already identified that we need to enhance that current provision, and also educate all our staff around what we can get, when we can get it, and what does that provide them with. So yes, we do have some provision, but we are looking to improve upon that.
Yeah, so I certainly associate myself with the thanks to the entire service for the outstanding work during the course of the summer, a very exceptional summer. I've met with and had a long discussion with Mark Hemming around the climate emergency implications. And obviously we'll be feeding into and reflecting on exactly the points that Gary was just making around having the right equipment, etc., moving forward, as this is now predictably going to be much more of the norm rather than the exception. So we need to be budgeting for planning for those instances. I think as well we need to be looking again at the comms, which was handled extremely well, but we do need to reflect on how we advise members of the public, and work with other members of the emergency services, etc., in reflecting on and reviewing existing emergency plans across the whole of the county. And also reflect on working with Thames Valley Police on issues to do with arson. For some strange reason, some people find it extremely attractive to throw a match into a field when it's bone dry and is bound to take, not doing it just once, but repeatedly. I'm not sure what you're going to be able to do about that, but obviously working closely with our friends in Thames Valley is, I think, incredibly important to try and prevent and make people aware that this is going on. Other than that, as I say, fantastic work as we expect from this service, and we need to reflect on the outcomes.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Callum, for the update. I think I agree with everything that you said about great work was done through the summer by our crews and the support teams. As the lead member for health and safety, I spoke with the then health and safety manager immediately after the incidents and was assured what had taken place was for the best interest of the crews, to keep them cool. Replace electrolytes had already been mentioned, and totally agree with Gary that we need to investigate how we provide welfare facilities. But I think going forward, I'm looking forward to hearing Callum's full report in due course and the learnings from it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, moving on to item number 7, workforce planning updates. Council is going to introduce it, I think, and then Anne-Marie, you're presenting. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, you've all seen the report. It's pretty straightforward. I think our recruitment is going reasonably well.
You're back. We briefly lost everything. You're back.
Yeah, I mean, there's some good news stories around recruitment. We've got the 20 new joiners in the whole time, and we're concentrating on the 4 key stations fully retained. So I think it's going, in the right direction, and I'm glad we're putting all our energy into recruitment and retention, of course. So I'll let Anne-Marie speak to the report.
Thank you. I've only got a short update because there's quite a lot in the exec summary. But in terms of workforce planning, we've following a reset of the workforce planning group. We now review a range of workforce planning measures and detailed plans monthly, and we take action where appropriate. The appendices on page 19 show a summary dashboard and plan. The measures we focus on are kind of from joining the service to leaving the service and a bit of promotion. And the bottom part, page 19, shows you our plan to achieve our on-station operational establishment by the end of the year. I didn't plan to go through in any more detail than that, really, but happy to take any questions.
Great, thank you. Can I, so firstly, can I welcome the report, and the dashboard is really, really helpful. Get visibility to this, and as Council said, this is one of the top 3 priorities for us across this year that we get to our numbers. Can I just ask on the bottom part of the plan, we're clearly showing that our on-station staff numbers by the end of March will be above establishment, which is welcome, if I'm reading it right.
Yeah.
I think I am. One of the things about that report is it's showing some assumptions around attrition at a sort of flat three level. Just interested in officers' confidence that that level is the right level to set attrition at. Clearly, the sensitivity on that is quite high for us in getting to the end state.
We take into account both our retirement profile and our leavers profile. It does get a little bit skewed if services go out for recruitment, so in a transfer process, but we have tried to factor that in where possible to find that mix of some of that number being retirement profile versus transfers out.
Okay, great. Any other questions from members?
Lindsay, with your hand was up.
No,
It's just glasses.
Just wanted to mention that the on-call have a go session at Only Fire Station I attended. I'm so impressed with the 20 or so potential new on-call firefighters, particularly the 2 that came up from the south of the county who were actually Thames Valley police officers who were looking for change, along with the 2 existing support team, fire prevention, and one of the cooks who also turned up. Absolutely fantastic, and all the others took it in great stead. I think Phil did a good job, and particularly when he took over from Kev Mercer, who did most of the drills before you decided that probably health and safety wise he needed some.
He looked tired.
The whole crews that were there, or the crews from only plus the teams that came up, it was a fantastic event, and I hope we get a significant number of new recruits from that.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you, Ruth. So we just need to make the report. So thank you for it. Next item is the budget monitoring report for April to July. We don't have Councillor Walsh, so I'll just hand straight over to
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, members. Firstly, I just want to say this report is at the end of July, and there have been some subsequent events that have taken place that I want to kind of bring to everyone's attention. So I'll probably be focusing more on subsequent events and how that's impacted our underspend. So the report in Appendix A sets out the authority's revenue and capital spend as at 31st of July 2022, together with the projected outturn position for the financial year. The budget of 33,480,000 compared to the forecast outturn of 33,763,000 is a forecast year-end overspend of 283k. Furthermore, the funding level of funding is showing a favorable variance of 480,000, which has resulted in an overall net underspend of 134k against our budget. Since the production of this report, there have been subsequent events that have resulted in the most recent forecast at the end of September to increase to £847,000 underspend. The key events that resulted in the increase in underspend are as follows. The announcement of the energy price cap for non-domestic customers has reduced the forecast spend for the year on gas and electricity by 400,000. Just to put it into perspective, we were previously forecasting utilities to cost in the region of 1.2 million for this financial year prior to the energy cap, and this is now reduced down to 800,000. The price cap is only for 6 months and is likely to stay in place for only vulnerable industries beyond the 6 months. So we're not planning for the price cap to remain after the 6 months. We have also seen a sharp increase in investment returns from our treasury activities. At the start of the financial year, we had projected returns of 30k with the base rate being under 1%. The recent increases in the Bank of England base rate have increased our forecast income from treasury management activities to 250,000. So that's an increase of over 200,000 just because of the level of return we're receiving now. The remainder of increases are predominantly due to higher operational levers than originally forecast, as well as 4 new support staff vacancies. Happy to take any questions in relation to what I just said now, or anything else in the report, but I want to focus more on the underspend increasing from 134,000 to 800,000, and I appreciate you may have some questions around pay related to my perspective.
Actually, on that note, is it worth just doing a brief update on where we are on pay? So I'll take that. So we obviously in the budget forecast a 2% pay award. That was rejected by the FBU. National employers over the course of the last 2 weeks have been looking at the right approach to it, and both the Chief Forester and myself have input into those discussions. A revised pay award offer was made this week of 5%. It's worth saying that as an authority, my input to that was that we could afford 5% for this year, partly for the reasons that, well, largely in fact for the reasons that Asif has outlined, but it would create some real challenges for us in future if we didn't get additional funding or preset flexibility. That has been fed in, and that led, I think that was reflective of a lot of fire authorities across the country. The Home Office has indicated it can't provide additional funding, so therefore the national employers have made a further offer of 5% this week, which I understand yesterday was rejected by the FPU, and I think they're going out to further consultation on that with their members. So we'll wait and see. But as a minimum now, I think we now need to assume that for this year we'll have to find a 5% increase. What I think it does do is that the next year's budget process becomes really important for us, that we do that with real visibility to the sensitivities and risks that we're building out. Mick, you've come on screen, so I assume you want to add to that?
No, it was just on the point you made, Chairman, if you don't mind, around the FBU's position on it. The very latest information that was circulated last evening was that they're looking to have a 10-day consultation period, sort of face-to-face with members, followed by a 2-week ballot process, which is an online ballot, as almost a consultative ballot to see if that would be acceptable to the membership or not. So just looking at the timelines around when the original ballot for industrial action was tabled, that it was going to be 5 weeks. This probably knocks it on another 4 weeks. So it was just for members' information, and that was sort of the latest information last night.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions, both on the report?
Well, only comment that, I mean, the settlements where they have been reached, not necessarily in the public sector, do at the moment seem to be around 10.5%. I think I've no idea, but I think the minimum the Fire Brigade Union would be looking at would be something like 8.5%. So I think, you know, and I know Asif and Mark are scenario planning, as it were, but I think we have to be, you know, making models based around 10.5 and coming down from there.
Agreed. And I think it's worth saying that that is going to present us with some significant challenges.
Unless the government chips in to help us with the settlement, yeah.
So point well made, understood.
Just on the energy costs, so thank you for clarifying what we had budgeted and what we're now budgeting after the government help. What did we pay for our energy costs in the previous financial year?
Yes, so last year it was in the region between 300 and 350,000 for the whole of our state. So it pretty much doubled. But just to clarify, that's not what we budgeted. What we've actually budgeted this year was only just over $500,000.
Yeah.
Actual costs are going to be over 700,000 for this year. So we are still overspending against our original budget, but the volatility into the utility market was kind of unknown at February when we were setting the budget. Going forward, actually, as part of our NTFP process, we're actually looking to set the budget around 1.3 million for next year because we're not expecting utility costs to come down anytime soon.
That's just useful to get a base where we came from, and just whether how material actually the number is within our overall budget. So thank you.
Yeah, just one on the operational Red Fleet. We seem to have an issue getting Red Fleet at the moment. It just seems to keep slipping and slipping. Are we contracted at the original price? Because I'm aware that vehicles are going up in price. So are we contracted or are we vulnerable there to big increases?
Potentially, currently we are contracted on those prices, but we've already been warned by the suppliers, necessarily for orders that we haven't placed yet. Potentially there will be a risk of price increases, significant price increases, to be honest, on the point of the contract. But just generally as well, our procurement manager gave us an update to kind of say previously we used to look to get fixed contracts in place for any contract we had to kind of give us a guarantee over the next few years. But that's all off the table now. No organisation is willing to do that, and they want to build some form of inflation into their contracts. So I think it will be the kind of theme going forward that there will be an expectation that costs will increase in most cases, even with stuff that we've got contracted. After a certain point, once the contract's over, we're going to have to renegotiate and agree the new prices.
Great. Okay. Thank you for that. So we are the recommendations. So we need to note the provisional outturn forecast to authority as of the 31st of July, and I think we'll note also the changes that you just outlined as well. Move on. So our next item is the Thames Valley Fire Control Service Systems contract. So this was a decision that was taken by the Thames Valley Fire Service Control Steering Group, which myself and Councillor Walsh are members. And the requirement of that is that it's then ratified and agreed by the constituency authorities. And I know that separately, given the timing, we provided an offline authorisation today's discussions to formally make that. So I don't know if there's anything else you want to add, Simon.
I can give you a quick summary just in terms of the context of it. So Thames Valley Fire Control Service utilises the Vision 4 mobilising system, which was established in 2015. When the joint service went live, and that contract has a review point at year 7 with an opportunity to break or extend. And the mobilising system works in conjunction with the DS3000 integrated command and control, what we call the IX system, which has a maintenance and support contract that expires in April 2023. They're both critical to the safe and effective running of the service. And it's desirable that we have the ICS and the vision system aligned as contracts. It is complicated by the sale of Triple S from Capita 20C Software Solutions, which commenced in 2021 and is now subject to investigation by the Competition and Markets Authority. Committee members resolved to extend by 1 year whilst that sale went ahead. The CMA investigation does not include the vision mobilising system, but it does include the ICS with both contracts expiring at the same time. And therefore, the recommendation is to extend the vision contract and tender for the ICS contract. But in specific regard to the tender, it's in so it will factor in the timescales and the outcomes of that CMA investigation, and we'll bring back more information to you. So it's a decision principles on tender.
Okay. Thank you. Any questions or comments from members?
Can I ask a question which is related to, but not actually part of this paper, just very quickly? We've been talking about industrial disputes. BT seem to have an industrial dispute at the moment with emergency call handling, 999 calls. I don't believe for one moment that the BT 999 call handlers will refuse to answer 999 calls, but there are reports of from the unions that they could be disrupted in some way. Do we have plans in place with regards to the call handling that we do at Royal Berkshire as well, that ensure that at the end of the day that a call gets through and a tender is dispatched, and is dispatched at the relevant time to maintain our levels of service?
Short answer is yes. So we've received, I think there's been 2 notifications of strike action in that particular area, and the second one, which is coming up, it involves the 999 call handling. So I receive information via Thames Valley Fire Control that BT provide assurance that they've got contingency arrangements in place. So it's very much their responsibility, but they provide us assurance that they've got contingency measures and they will be able to continue to provide that 999 service.
So in a world where we have 101 things to worry about, I shouldn't be losing sleep over this.
I wouldn't know. And in terms of our own,
I hope you agree, yes.
we've got a contract as well for our own resilience internally.
Okay.
Fire Control.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, we're all relieved for you, David, as well.
Well, exactly that.
Good.
Lack of sleep can do.
Any other questions or comments? No? In which case, I won't read through the recommendations because members can see them. They're in the papers for others to see. So are we happy to agree all of those recommendations, including the in principle on the tender? Agreed. Okay, thank you. So our next item is item number 10, performance management, which I'll just briefly introduce before I hand over to Anne-Marie. So one of the key things that I was keen on becoming chairman during the summer was that both at executive and at the authority level, we got visibility to the key performance indicators that would support us in our role in scrutinising and reviewing the service. And work was done between lead members and senior management team to look at what those measures would be. I have to say, the work that officers have done during the summer from that brief has been outstanding again. Really pleased with the progress. I think members, and I know I've talked to a number of members about this, members need to understand it is a work in progress. And I think as we get used to using the framework, we'll identify measures that we perhaps want to focus on and others that we don't. But I think it's a really important step forward for us, and I hope members will join me in welcoming it. But so I think we could just talk through the process you've taken to get to this and where we're at, and then perhaps focus in on some of the key measures you want to draw our attention to. Okay, over to you.
So this is the first report covering the FRS performance measures. They show the service's performance across a range of measures, and as the chairman has mentioned, have been built with input from both staff and members. On page 48, we have highlighted 3 measures that show the good performance and areas we need to focus on. So we have highlighted deliberate fires to non-domestic premises, fire and wellness visits, both areas we need to focus on, and serious accidental dwelling fires, which actually is a positive result. We continue to develop and refine these measures with updates being provided quarterly to members. And I'm happy to take any questions around the measures that we've highlighted or any other measures.
Thank you. Any comments, questions from members?
I note the progress being made under your guidance.
Don't know credit for us, somebody else
No,
for it, and
technical.
officers then provided, but it is, I think it is really a fantastic step forward, and I know we're also looking to replicate this in the fire service control measures as well, which be helpful. Any other comments or questions? No? Okay, well, I think you can take the silence as genuinely
No idea what's.
as a reflection of the impressive work. What question from me? Just in terms of the fire and wellness visits, I wonder if you just talk a little bit more about that measure and the influence on the measure, because clearly that's an important part of what we do and links back to the HMI report. So you're just interested in a bit more information on where we are with that.
Absolutely. So yeah, it is clearly it's an area for improvement. We know that from the HMI report, and we've got an improvement plan which we brought through after our evaluation, which came through to the Overview and Audit Committee. I'll say that the prevention team's been really kind of working very hard this year to restructure, to regroup. We've had some recruitment challenges over the year as well. But positively, I can say that we're recruiting into the final post now, so we will be a full establishment, and that improvement plan is progressing really nicely. We've got the prevention strategy coming through to the authority next week for members to sign off, and we are gathering steam. In terms of numbers, they're not. The volume isn't where we want it to be yet, but we are on a good trajectory. The numbers are starting to go up, and I would hope that by, as we've indicated in the narrative, that by April we will be at our target level, 300 per month. The other thing to point out is that the targeting is doing really well. In terms of our targeting, we're very good at targeting high-risk, vulnerable people in those home fire safety visits, which we don't want to compromise by increasing volume.
So I think just on that note, certainly from my perspective, and I know we've had a discussion around this, whilst the volume of visits is important, I think the balance of getting that with the people that are vulnerable is the really critical thing to make sure we get right. And indeed, in a meeting that the Chief Fire Officer and I had with the leader and Chief Executive of Buckinghamshire Council, I think it's also critical during the period of this winter where there are other concerns around those individuals that we play our part in supporting. So we really welcome that work. Thank you. Any other questions?
To pick up on that last bit, in terms of working in the community, both Buckinghamshire and Milton Keynes will have sheltered accommodation. Are those key targets where you've got groups of people who might be elderly and have accessibility issues? That are they prime targets for you? And how do you know about them?
So we target the over 80s. That is a primary target.
Not there yet.
But another one.
What's that?
Another area that we target is high-rise buildings. So more around the building itself. So we're doing a lot of work around targeting those buildings. Shelter.
Great.
So I was going to say, so what we did to try and help our prevention teams is we basically broke the county down to lots of little 100-metre squares, 200-metre squares. And we counted how many people that were over 80 lived in those squares on their own, then with others, if there was any over 65s in there. So basically what we did is we took the highest density areas and we focused on those. Sheltered housing areas obviously come out quite key in those two altogether. So naturally they do get put to the top of the pile because they are a dense area of high vulnerability. So we don't specifically say we're going to them, but they naturally feed their way to the top of the pile anyway, if that helps.
It does, thank you for that. Use of data is vitally important. In terms of local knowledge, do you have any engagement with the Buckinghamshire Council and or Milton Keynes Council in terms of housing departments? Or certainly we've got a housing, but I don't know the structure now in Buckinghamshire where housing lies, whether it's within the county council or whether it's or the council.
So we do work with them, but we also use our gazetteer. So our gazetteer is like the national address book, and that tells us what every property type is. So it will tell us whether it's a sheltered accommodation, whether it's a single dwelling. So we can also utilise that so we know where they all are. At the moment, it's just about being efficient and effective as opposed to just picking up. If you're like if there's two houses in the middle of nowhere, as much as we would love to go and do that work, that is high on the priority, but not as high as if we can get 20 done in the same day. So we do know where they are. We do work with the council and other groups. But it's just at the moment it's about prioritising and getting as much done as we can with those high risks.
So with slightly wondering what the answer might be, but if I went to our housing department, Milton Keynes, and said, how often have you met with fire prevention, or have you had a report from fire prevention for council-owned stock? What do you think the answer would be?
I think I'm going to have to take that question away and have a look at, because we sit on a lot of partnership boards,
Yeah.
and I'd like to see how the housing kind of links into that and to answer that specific
Yeah,
question. if that's okay.
It's just that they will know where all the people are, so as will the gazetteer, but there may be just pockets that are there. How would you know there might be in 20, there could be 6 wheelchair users at that level? And that's something where the local knowledge could be useful to make, even improve what you're already doing. I think it's a great step forwards.
Yeah.
Right, but it's just adding that extra value to it.
Thank you. I will look into that, Councillor, and get an answer to you related to the housing. I suppose another example of that where we do get good data where we target is oxygen users. So we get a monthly list through of people that are on oxygen, and then we target those people specifically. So we've got quite a broad range of data that goes into our targeting, but I'll have to look into the housing kind of link.
I think Craig's got a hard job to bring it all together and produce the targets, as you say.
Yeah, there is work going on, I would say, as well, about making it easier for us, you and the council and the fire sector to share data as well. Because at the moment, depending on which fire service you work with, depends on how much data you get. So if you're part of like Oxfordshire, they're part of the council, they get much more access to data than we would, purely because of fear of what GDPR is, and it's so ambiguous that it's hard. Well, we would love to share it, but we don't want to risk it. So there's a lot of work going in the background. That once that's done, that will make life a lot easier for us as well.
The third one is health. People might have mental health issues as well as physical, and so thank you for. I'll give it some more thought and wait for Simon to come back. Thank you very much.
Good discussion. Thank you. Just on that discussion, worth noting on page 49, we captured the sort of essence of the discussion we've just had, that under PI 1.10, we're showing a green performance on the fire and wellness visits to vulnerable, which, going back to that discussion, I think is the really critical thing to keep an eye on. Thank you very much. Okay, we move to item 11, date of the next meeting, which is to take the recommendation. Oh, sorry. Okay. It's a very short one. While you're here, Claire, to make sure.
I think the word agreed will see.
Yeah. So we're noting the performance measures, which I think we all are. I should say, actually, if members do have any additional measures, having spent time to absorb and reflect on the report, feed them into to Anne-Marie and Craig, that'd be much appreciated. So moving on to item number 11, date for the next meeting is Wednesday the 16th of November at 10 AM. Could you just confirm the venue? Here, great, thank you. Well, that note, I'll close the meeting. Thank you everyone online and have a great weekend.